Welcome everyone, I hope you're having a very wonderful day and welcome to my guide for Gray Fox for New England Mountains. Before we begin, I want to quickly break down on how today's guide is going to work. First, we're going to be covering animal hotspots, and then we're going to move on to weapon recommendations, and then end in today's video with the animal profile. So let's get right into it. Now, typically I visit the animal hotspot locations. However, just like with the Red Fox video, I will not be doing that today. Mostly because these animals move around once you kill them. But I'm going to show you guys typically where I find most of my gray fox when they respawn. So if we open up our map right here, we're going to cover first off rivers and then we're going to move on to lakes. So Driscoll Pass right over right on here on this right hand side. If we start up from my tent right at the very tippy top and scroll all the way down to this little creek right here, the start entryway of the creek, that's typically from that point to this point is where I find most of my gray fox when it comes to river searching. However, you can find them all the way scattered throughout here, but mostly they're condensed up in this section up here for me. It could be different from you. They could be down here in this lower stretch of the river right here sitting on this corner, or they'll be up here on this stretch of the river. This is another hot spot for rivers when it comes to looking for gray fox. Highly recommend checking it out. You can start from this bend up here, the little tip there, and then moving all the way down to this bridge, which is typically where I find them. But if you start from this outpost as well and move on to this bridge, you'll find them as well. I do want to mention one thing. The red fox and gray fox kind of intermingle right in this area here. So don't be alarmed if you start seeing red fox on this edge here. That just means you're probably in the merge zone, and that's pretty much it. I also want to mention these 5 lakes right here. Red fox and gray fox can also share them. Just keep that in mind when you're hunting here. If you are wanting more gray fox in these zones, I recommend just picking off the red fox and getting them out of the way in hopes of a gray fox coming to the zone. Now we're going to move on to lakes. Now there's 2 hotspot lakes that I'm going to recommend. This Deer's Eye Lake is very solid. I typically get 2 to 3 zones here for gray fox, which we have one right here, and we should have another one right here, but I am not seeing it, so maybe I did not count correctly. But typically right here at Deer's Eye, it's very solid. I mean, it's at the very start of the game, so you have access to it right off the bat. And right up above here we have our, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, but we have a pond right here which has quite a few gray fox on it. I get a pretty frequent amount. This is also where I got my diamond gray fox, so I recommend always checking this out. And I also want to say putting a tent between these two isn't a bad idea, because over here sometimes quite a few gray fox migrate over there after picking them off from this pond. So that pretty much covers all of the locations for today's hotspots. So we're going to move on to the equipment section. So I will see you guys back at the outpost. Alrighty, so we're here back inside the outpost. We didn't have to go far as we were just chilling out on the porch. However, before we begin, I want to quickly mention 3 things. First thing is that I'm only going to be covering rifles, handguns, and shotguns. I'm not a bow expert, so I will leave that to the professionals. And secondly, these are my personal recommendations. I always recommend going out there and exploring to see what suits you the best and what you enjoy playing with. And then lastly, I'll be mentioning all the DLC these weapons come from in case you want to pick them up for yourself. So let's get right into it. This weapon showcase is pretty similar to the Red Fox. I'd pretty much sure that nothing changes here. We're going to be starting off with the Ranger 243. You have 5 rounds in the magazine, very solid. You can place followed up shots with it. It just takes 1 round to drop a Red Fox. Very solid rifle. I highly recommend picking up since it's base game. You get it right off the bat. Ease of access. I do want to mention, just like I mentioned with the Red Fox, the rocks on the river stretches have the hitboxes of minivans. And placing follow-up shots on there is very important, because there's a lot of times where I'm shooting in between the rocks and the rock just absorbs around, and then the fox just looks at you like you're stupid. So highly recommend picking up something that can fire pretty quick. Further on down, we have the king, the champion of all small animals in my opinion. This is a pretty biased one. The 22-250 is my personal favorite for taking out small animals. Highly recommend picking this bad boy up, and you could find it in the Emerald Coast DLC. We're going to move on to handguns here. I only have 1 handgun recommendation. I know I talked about having multiple shots and having follow-ups, but the 243 Kumo, very fun to use, very gimmicky. You can put rifle scopes on it. I'm pretty sure you can put the night vision scopes on it as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's very, very, very fun to use. And if you want to level up your pistols, just pick it up. And you can pick it up in the Assorted Sidearms pack. If you're going to use it on this map and you're worried about the rocks hitboxes, just use it on the lakes and you'll be fine. Moving on to shotguns, we only have 1 shotgun for today. It is the Norden 20 gauge. I pretty much recommend this thing for all small animals. You have 3 rounds in the tube, semi-auto, and you can just blast it rather pretty quickly. It's a fun, and yeah, I recommend picking it up. You can pick it up in the Duck and Cover Pack DLC. So that's pretty much it for weapon recommendations. I'm going to see you guys right over at the animal profile in just a moment. And here we are at the end of today's video at our animal profile. Before I go, let's quickly gloss over everything really quick, starting on the left-hand side. We have our Gray Fox basic information covering the class, difficulty, silver, gold, and diamond threshold. We have our weight from least to greatest in kilograms and pounds. We have our fur types common and very rare. And in the middle of the map, we have our hotspots in red, and we have our other hotspots in yellow. Now, we've already covered all the merge spots pretty much, other than the middle section here, which pretty much you'll know when you're starting to encounter the red fox. It's pretty much just right below that little lake where my mouse is at, and that's the merge spot for the creek section. But that's pretty much it for the middle. And on the right hand side, we have our time zones. We have it all organized here to make your hunting life 10 times easier. And then below that, we have our ammo chart for full integrity kills. And that pretty much covers it. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please leave a like. It really helps the channel out a lot. And I hope you guys have a very wonderful day. Happy hunting, good luck, and I will see you guys in the next one.